Good morning and welcome to Unity Spiritual Center RGV Sunday morning online service. We are very glad to have you join us today. Unity is a positive path for spiritual living. We are a love-based, all-inclusive spiritual community. And if you'd like to learn more about Unity, you can go to our website, which is unityrgv.org, or the main website, which is just unity.org. And there you will find many tools to help you, practical tools to help you in your spiritual unfolding. Do take advantage of them. There are many radio programs you can listen to. There's archives there. There are what we call our spiritual tools that you can go in there and read about. It's just a lot of material in there that you'll find very, very helpful. So once again, welcome to today's service, and I hope you enjoy it. Today's announcements are, first, that we have a guest speaker today. You all know her, Jennifer Birdie Shawker from Floresville, San Antonio area. She has been with us before. And she's also part of the collaborative group that we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I was talking to her early part of the week, and she mentioned that on the 25th, which was a few days ago, was the beginning, or was a celebration, Jewish celebration of Purim. And I said, I have never heard of that. So we showed a video about it on the Tuesday Let's Get Metaphysical class, and I told her, why don't you tell us a little about this Jewish holiday? Since we don't know anything about it, I always like to learn new things. So she'll be sharing some of that with you today. The other announcements are that the classes, which I just spoke of, Tuesday night, 7 p.m., Let's Get Metaphysical. Then on Thursday, 6:30 is the ARE group. And then at 8 o'clock is the collaborative meditation. So I invite you to join us. The information's on the website. I invite you to join us for those activities. Thank you. I invite you to take a centering breath and focus on the words I'm going to share with you today. They come from the Release and Renew booklet. And the topic is now. And from Luke, we read, today you will be with me in paradise. Now bear with me, the letters are a little small. These powerful words, as recorded in the Gospel of Luke, are what Jesus said to the two men who were hanged to the right and left of him as he was being crucified. What I want you to explore with you here is a metaphysical perspective of this image. Jesus on the cross represents the now, and the two men represents the past and the future. When we're in this crisis of transformation, the past and the future may both weigh heavily on us. Our ideas of how life is supposed to be, quote unquote, formed from our past experiences and expectations, have collapsed, and the future seems dark and uncertain. In this time of crucifixion, Jesus speaks to the two men of paradise, an often elusive, mythical, faraway concept. But Jesus says, today you shall be with me in paradise. The word is also used interchangeably with kingdom of heaven. And we are told that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and that it is neither here nor there, but before us. Paradise, the kingdom of heaven, is available to all of us, here, now, and always. And paradise can only be experienced in the now present moment. There is, of course, much goodness in our memories and in our ideas of who we are becoming. In our fear, we often believe we'll lose something of value, but in our faith, we know that there is never anything lost in God. Jesus' words confirm that only good shall remain. All the good that has brought us to the moment of transformation will remain and ascend with us. And all the good that we hope to become and experience will be made manifest. I assure you, the greatest joy in the world is the now present moment, because that is where God resides. We've all missed the beauty and peace available to us if we could just take a deep breath and embrace right where we are now. It is the flights of fancy into the future and to the past and away from the present that ultimately remove the peace that is possible only in the now moment. Join me in Unity RGV Spiritual Center Vision and Affirmation. Unity RGV is an expanding center of the Christ light, mighty to attract its good and radiate good to others. Centered in God, we express the indwelling Christ.
I do believe I will receive. I just have to know and then declare it to be so with an open mind. In just a little bit of time, if it serves my highest good, it won't be mine. I do believe I will receive. I just have to know and then declare it to be so with an open mind. In just a little bit of time, if it serves my highest good, then it will be mine. I do believe I will receive. I just have to know and then declare it to be so with an open mind. In just a little bit of time, if it serves my highest good, then it will be mine.
As we start this time of inner reflection, let's begin by getting comfortable. Remove all objects from your lap. Place your feet on the floor. Sit up comfortably in your chair. Relax the muscles in your face, shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. Feel your hips, legs, feet, and toes relax as well. Release any areas of tension you feel in your body. Take a deep, centering breath. Slowly inhale. Gently hold for a few seconds. and then slowly exhale. Repeat a few times. Focus on your inhalation and exhalation as you continue to relax your body. Gently breathe in and out. Just relax and breathe naturally. You now feel the increased sense of relaxation to your body with every breath. Feel calmness and peace wash over you. Now let's center our attention to the daily word today, which is connection. Our Bible verse is from 1 Corinthians 12:13 and reads, "For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit." Today's affirmation is, I honor my connection with all people. Let's say that together once. I honor my connection with all people. Our message reads, no matter how great the distance that exists between me and the people I care about, I know we are connected by our love for one another. Today, I reestablish and strengthen this connection by reaching out, even if it's only to let someone know I'm thinking of them. Our connection is always kept strong through prayer. As I pray for those I care about, I bless them by holding my highest vision for their lives, seeing them as healthy, prosperous, and happy and fulfilled. Whether we're in frequent contact or have fallen out of touch, my connection with my loved ones remains strong because we are one in God, one in love. Now let's close our eyes and take these words and this affirmation into the silence.
I love the silence down in my soul. I love the silence down in my soul. I love the silence down in my soul. And the whole wide world is my home. I've got a new day down in my soul. I've got a new day down in my soul. I've got a new day down in my soul. And the whole wide world is my home.
Hello, Unity RVG. Thanks for having me again. And the invitation happened in such an interesting way. Reverend Tommy and I were chatting about what I was up to at work. I serve as a hospital chaplain, and a lot of people think, oh, and people have even come up to me saying, oh, I think it's so great you're a hospital chaplain because you're spreading the unity message to people. I don't proselytize there, my friends. I serve people within their spiritual framework. So last week was a Jewish holiday called Purim. And for my chapel services that I do for the hospital online, if I can, I try and incorporate any holidays that I learn of or know of that are not of my faith tradition. So on sundown on Thursday and on Friday, it was the joyful holiday of Purim. And with all the recent cold and hardship with no electricity, I was ready for a party. And so the timing couldn't be better because Purim is really a happy occasion. Costumes are worn and scripture is read with kind of noisemakers used by all when the name of the evil villain Haman is read. And because of the costumes, it's often called the Jewish Halloween, but it has almost nothing in common with Halloween. Mitzvahs of care for the poor, gifts of food, and even a mitzvah of drinking, if you're healthy enough and can do so, are observed. And for those of you who don't know what a mitzvah is, it's a good deed done out of religious duty. All this in recognition of what we as Christians know as the book of Esther in the Bible from the Hebrew scriptures. Sometimes people call it the Old Testament, but it is really more respectful to call it the Hebrew scriptures. And Reverend Tommy was like, wow, you've done all this research. Come on and speak. So I'll speak to the book of Esther, which Reverend Tommy and I observed is not tackled a whole lot from the pulpit. And in all my research, I kind of discovered why. It's a very dramatic story, has a lot of ups and downs, nooks and crannies, and things to explore. And for those of you who might say, oh, well, politics has no place in religion, you may not have studied the book of Esther very closely. I know I hadn't beyond Sunday school, where we knew Esther as a courageous hero. So I'm going to try and give you my Cliff Notes version of the book of Esther, but I recommend a self-study. I'm going to give you maybe a few more details than we learned in Sunday school. I might shine a little bit of a historic lens upon it, and I might explore, because this is the interesting thing about stories in the Bible. The Bible tells us stuff, but there's also stuff it just doesn't explain the rationale for. So we might do some connecting of the dots that are not necessarily written down in the Bible. Now in Unity, we usually do metaphysical interpretation, and I might cover that a little bit, but what I learned in school about metaphysical interpretation is that the Bible is a book about me. So every character, every location, every aspect of every story, and these are collections of stories, there's an aspect of me that I can explore through them. So there's part of me that is Esther, who's our hero of the story. There's a part of me that is Mordecai, who's another hero in the story. There's part of me that is King Xerxes. And there's part of me that's even the bad guy, Haman, or Haman, as you know, no matter what you want to pronounce it. I tend to pronounce them interchangeably. So I recommend some self-study at some point. So let's explore this interesting story with so many plot twists that it makes my head spin together. All right. So the story opens with, here's a little bit of information in the background that may be helpful for you. This story takes place about 100 years after the Jews have been in exile. Some of the Jews returned to Jerusalem, but a lot didn't, and they settled in the areas where they were. So this story takes place and is about a Jewish community in the capital of Persia. And we open the story with this super detailed account of a banquet that's super long, like 180 days, being held by the king of Persia, Xerxes I. And like I said, stories in the Bible sometimes don't say why. Why would you hold this super fancy banquet? Why would you go? I mean, there's several paragraphs describing the opulence. Why would you do this? So let's tackle the 180 days first, okay? Persia is huge. It's a vast kingdom. It goes from India to the upper Nile, right? So it's a very vast kingdom. There are no planes, trains, or automobiles. So in order for leadership from the different parts of Persia to make it to this banquet, you got to give them a lot of time to travel. Now, the other thing is all the opulence. And we can draw some conclusions. There's no answer in the Bible as to why that is, but we can think about state dinners, which still exist, which are kind of similar. You know, you invite people, they see this opulence, it's a reflection of the national identity maybe. You get to meet the leader of the country who is a reflection of the national identity, and it's also a lot of political things go on behind the scenes. So, I don't know, put that in the back of your mind as we open this story, okay? So, during this particular grand event, Xerxes is a little tipsy, and he wants to introduce his wife, the queen, to all of these leaders. Now, the queen's pretty busy because these leaders that have traveled so far have brought their wives, and she's holding a banquet for all the wives. So, and it never says in the Bible why Vashti said absolutely not. I mean, she just declined to come when the king requested it to the banquet where the men are. And she's definitely a woman ahead of her time. That simply was not done. Your husband kind of ruled your world in those biblical times. So she was, Xerxes was not impressed with this, and she was pretty much fired from her position as queen. And we don't know why she was fired. Was it her disobedience? I don't know. He got together with all his wise men and said, well, she's not setting a very good example. If we allow her to continue to be queen, she's going to set this example, and wives everywhere are going to start saying no to their husbands. I guess it's as good as rationale as any, but I suspect there's more to it. So Xerxes is queenless, and he needs a new queen. So beautiful women from all around the country were brought to the palace, including humble but super gorgeous Esther. Now, she's poor, and she was raised as she's an orphan who was raised by her uncle Mordecai. And after some time with the eunuchs, with these beauty treatments that went on for a very long time, like a year, again, we don't really know why, Esther found herself selected by the king, and she was in the very unlikely position of a queen. I mean, typically in those days and ages, allegiances were formed by marriages. The Bible does not describe why the queen was selected in this manner, but maybe later on in the story we can draw some conclusions about that. We can speculate. So, Esther was Jewish, but her uncle had advised her to keep that through to herself throughout this seeming like vetting process that all of the women had gone through. So in the story, there's a series of meetings between Esther and Mordecai. It seems like they're always located at the gate of the palace. And one of these times when Mordecai is kind of waiting to connect with Esther, he overhears a plot to overthrow the king from these two guards. And so Esther tells the king. Now, this is a really important thing to file in the back of your mind as we go through the story, right? So already Esther has made this wonderful impression. So the king has a top advisor, and his name is Haman. And he decided that he was grand enough that not only should people bow down to the king, but they should bow down to him. And the king agrees to this. So Haman noticed one day that Mordecai was, he's going down the street and everybody's bowing except Mordecai. And Haman was enraged. So, and then he learns who Mordecai's people were, that they were Jews. And at first he only wanted to kill Mordecai, but then he was like, why don't we just kill all the Jews? And he went to the king, And the king was like, sure. We don't know why he was like, sure, but he gave Haman his ring, and a decree was put out that all the Jews should be killed. This is terrible, right? And when Mordecai learned of all of this, he tore up his clothes and he put on a sackcloth and threw ashes over him and went into the city wailing loudly and bitterly. Now, this was an act of individual bravery. It identified him as a Jew because this was a ritual that people did for either mourning or repentance. Mordecai approaches Esther for help. Now, this is a big deal because she has not identified herself as a Jew, so this puts her in a very delicate position. And Mordecai suggests that perhaps she was placed on this earth to represent her people and save them. So Esther says to Mordecai, go and gather everybody who's in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days. I and my attendants will fast as you do. And when this is done, I will go to the king, even though it's against the law. If I perish, I perish. And that's not like super drama. This was the law at the time, that if you approached the king without his permission, you could be killed. So Mordecai went away and followed all of Esther's instructions. And Esther fasts for 3 days. She gets all dressed up and she goes to the king's hall. She approaches the king, and he was happy to see her and held out his gold scepter. And this means Esther was okay. She was not going to be killed. And the king asks, what is it that you want? I'll give you even half of my kingdom, right? And logic would dictate maybe that Esther would advocate for her people at this point, but that's not what she does. She says, if it pleases the king, let the king, together with Haman, come today to a banquet I have prepared for him. Now, I gave you that quote because it's worded very strangely. Who is this banquet for? Is it for the king? Is it for Haman? And it doesn't say it in the Bible, but I am envisioning possibly the king going, who's this banquet for? What's this all about? Kind of curious, you know? So the banquet occurs, and the king says at the banquet, what would you like, my queen? Even half my kingdom. And she says, you would think maybe she would advocate for her people at this point, and she doesn't. And the Bible does not elaborate as to why, but it does say, please come to a banquet tomorrow, and I will throw this for you both. So this is a real head scratcher. And it says in the scripture, that night the king could not sleep. Doesn't say why he couldn't sleep, but if my wife was being that weird, I would kind of be restless. So he decides to order the book of Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought to him and read to him. And so the servant comes in and starts reading to him, and he hopes, being read to sleep, the king will fall asleep. But it was recorded in there that Mordecai had exposed this plot to kill the king. And the king is like, wow, did we ever recognize this guy? He asks the servant. And the attendant said, no, nothing's ever been done for him. So the king in the morning asked to speak to Haman. And Haman enters the chamber, and the king is like, Haman, what do you think somebody should be given if the king delights in him and wants to honor him? And Haman thought, I bet you the king might honor me, right? So he says to the king, you should put like royal clothes on him and give him one of your best horses and have the royal crest placed on his head. And then, let somebody you trust implicitly lead the man through town, going through the streets, proclaiming before him, that this man is someone that the king delights to honor, right? So when Haman learns that it's Mordecai he's going to be doing this to, he's mad. And he goes ahead and all of this occurs, and Haman is a person that leads Mordecai through the streets. How embarrassing. So Haman's pretty upset, and he decides that Mordecai is going to die in a really terrible way when the day comes for all the Jews to be destroyed, right? So he had set a day for that by drawing lots. And so he prepared for it by putting up this pole, this really sharp pole that Mordecai's going to be impaled on. Pretty scary stuff, right? So this second banquet happens. Here's Queen Esther, here's Xerxes, here's Haman, and King Xerxes, hasn't slept, and he's super curious. And he's like, all right, Queen, what is your petition? Whatever it is, I'm going to give it to you. What's your request? And the queen answers, if I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, please give me my life. This is my petition. Please spare my people. This is my request. And the king is like, do what? And he's very confused. And he's like, who has ordered this? What man dares to do such a thing? And Esther points to Haman and says, it's Haman. I'm a Jew. And finally, this is the time when she says, I'm a Jew. So this is very interesting. Why has she done this? Well, I think maybe she got selected to be the wife because she had no identity that she expressed other than being a Persian, right? So she has risked a lot because she was selected just based on her grace and her beauty and this national identity. Like I said, I'm speculating here, but I'm trying to highlight how brave this lady was. It took a lot of courage to do this. She really risked her life. Luckily, the king was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So Xerxes decides that Haman has to go. And Mordecai came into the presence of the king and he said, you're going to be my number 2 now. You're going to be my advisor. And not Xerxes, but Haman was put on the very pole that he had prepared for Mordecai. Here's another ups and downs kind of thing, though, about the end of the story, because it really doesn't end there. You think, oh, okay, the edict's going to be taken back, right? Well, it can't be taken back by law. So Mordecai and Esther put their heads together and draw up a proposal that the Jews should be able to defend themselves on the day that it was decreed that they should be destroyed. And the king is good with this. And so that is what went out, and the Jewish people defended themselves, and there was a joyous celebration afterwards. And at that time, it was also decreed that this story should be remembered and honored and celebrated. Phew, I'm kind of exhausted telling you this story. I mean, plot twists, ups and downs. There's a rags to riches story in there highlighting that anything is possible. It's very spiritual, right? There's political intrigue, there's courage, there's social justice. I mean, what's not to love about this? But there's some people that don't love this story and don't love that it's in the Bible. You know why? Because God is not mentioned once. As a matter of fact, Esther is the only scripture that does not mention God at all. It's kind of interesting. But for those of us in unity, this should be pretty easy to accept, to my mind, because I see a lot of the divine and the activity of the divine in the story. This up and down nature of the story. I mean, one minute we're in one place and the other we're in the other. Yay, oh, that's so sad. Yay, And the fact that seemingly impossible things can happen and the bravery, these are all very spiritual notions and greatly at work in the story. So who wouldn't want to celebrate that, right? And to me, it does not matter that God is not mentioned, because God is fully present in the characters, good, bad, and ugly. They're simply giving that power that they have as divine individuals, either making good choices about it or not so good choices about it. And most people would agree, I would think. Even if they don't agree, that's pretty hard to step into that knowledge that we are fully divine, as we say in Unity. That's a kind of a hard concept to grasp. But most people would probably agree that God is fully present in the remarkable courage of the characters. As a dear friend of mine and mentor used to tell me, there is not a spot where God is not. So, to close this story for you, I am going to take a little bit of a metaphysical bend to it, just to give you a head start in your studies, should you decide to study this in a metaphysical manner and explore your inner Esther and your inner Mordecai and your inner Xerxes and your inner Haman, because it's good to study our shadow selves. So in this book, this is the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. Charles Fillmore has some thought about Esther, about courage, and about the origin of courage. He writes in his Metaphysical Interpretation that this story, Esther, the character Esther, is about the dissolving power of spiritual love. This is an antidote for dictatorial will. Esther had all her relatives, the Jews, which represent spiritual thoughts, join her in a fast. This means that we must deny all selfish desires out of love before we use it in softening the imperious will. When this consciousness of love stands in the inner court of our being, we cannot help acceding to its demands. Unselfish love is fearless because it is forgetful of the self. Will divides its dominion with love when approached with the right attitude, which by the touching of the highest point of understanding, which is represented in the story by the top of the golden scepter, which Esther touched, understanding of divine love is the one necessary thing in all permanent unions. When we know the truth that we are all one, there is no separation whatsoever. That's a lot to take in. But what I take in from Charles Fillmore's words is that source of courage is within all of us. And that source of courage is love. I thank you for listening. Be blessed this day.
Thank you very much, Birdie, for that interesting and new topic of Purim, which we now know a little bit about. So there comes a time in our service where we offer our gifts, our tithes, our offerings, to continue this spiritual community that has been here for more than 40 years now. And we are just about getting close to coming at the end of a pandemic. And the time will come soon when we will be able to get back together here, all of us. It'd be amazing, because it's been a while now. And as they say, we don't know what we have until we lose it. But we haven't lost it. It's just kind of been put away, tucked away for a little bit. But it's coming back. It's coming back. Hold on. Anyway, we take our tithes together and we say, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. So it is. I do is blessed by your hand, God. I'll give it back to you. Everything I give, every thought that's true is magnified in kind, God. I'll give it back to you. Thank you once again for joining us today. We're so glad that you were able to join us. So we'd like to close out with a prayer of protection and remind you that next week I will be speaking about Lent a little bit. So let's close out with the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Have a blessed week. Be safe, be well, and get vaccinated as soon as you possibly can so we can get back into our spiritual community here live in person. Once again, have a blessed week.